If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
Grimerica the blah blah.
Sending out good vibes.
Blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes. Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that. 108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that. 108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
Grimerica/support.
He was on acid, completely in a completely different zone and a way of thinking, and he described the DNA helix structure that he saw through a psychedelic trip.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We are going to be chatting with Nik Badminton a little bit later. He's a bit of a futurist. He's going around and he tells I think he spent some time like briefing companies about how the future was going to be, and he's kind of a futurist visionary in a sense, I suppose. And we've got James Nation, who are slowly trying to con into doing some work around here. Back, he's going to join us, hang out for a bit. Always welcome addition. And of course, we got everybody's favorite co-host, the one and only Spam Graham Sing-Along Dunlop. How's it going, buddy?
I'm okay. How you doing?
Pretty good. So the reason I bring that up is because I just recently found out 270 episodes later, 60 episodes, whatever it is that we've given you for free, that Graham's, one of his pre-show rituals is to do a little lap around Chestermere and belt out show tunes.
Sing Turn Me Loose.
No Loverboy.
Loverboy?
No Loverboy.
Do you have a rule?
The 80s. No, there's no rules.
No rules? Anything goes about Loverboy?
I think it's more like We're Not Gonna Take It. See, he's pumping himself up.
What was it today?
Well, it was a weird one today. I don't know.
Adele?
It's called Spiritual Being by Youth versus Abacus came on.
Huh.
There's a bit of a synchronicity because I was just thinking about it earlier, and I shuffled it on. So it wasn't really a sing-along one, but it was an interesting moment. I got the shivers and stuff. So
Brad Pitt
Cool.
is in that.
That's
right?
probably why I got the shivers.
So, but I did want to say that we do this little intro where we get listeners involved, read emails and stories and stuff like that, and we shoot the shit for a little bit before the episode comes on. So for all the new listeners, you can fast forward it to the episode if you want.
There's always a timestamp.
There's a timestamp in the show notes.
I think you can just hit skip if you're on your phone. I don't know
if you're in. Most podcast players have a skip button to the next part of the thing, and Darren separates that nicely. Yeah.
Most of the time, when I remember, I'd say like 90% of the time I do that.
But this is the real fun part.
Some people think so. Other people think it's the interviews.
Whatever. We got to do it. We get people involved, so. And we have James today.
If we didn't do this part, it wouldn't be quite as much fun, because this is kind of where we get to just talk about whatever the fuck we want, like our crazy balloon projects, and we do a little begging for money and all that fun stuff. So anyway, where do you want to start this week? I thought I had some stuff to talk about.
Well, we got a couple AI things to talk about, stories, and then Jay would get James's take on futurism. Maybe keep it sort of on that vein if we can.
Oh, James is going to give us a definition, wasn't he?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, let's hear it.
Oh, futurist. Like, are we going to wiki this?
I don't know. I thought you were like ready.
A person who studies the future and makes predictions about it based on current trends. Okay.
You said there was another one too in there.
Oh, yeah. Or a person who believes that the esoterical prophecies are still to be fulfilled.
Well, the first one would be Nick, our guest, later.
Yes. Speaking of James, I bought a little present, a little early Christmas present for the studio.
Picture of me.
That too. A little. It's actually one of those which I said I would never get, and I never would get for my house. But I bought the Google thing.
Chromecast?
Yeah, I'm going to hang it from the roof right here.
Oh, the Hey
and
Google?
It's the one, I'm going to change the name to James.
Hey, James.
And then
You didn't get Google Home, did you?
Yeah.
What?
And we'll be like, hey, James, what's the definition of futurism? And I'm gonna actually
Are you going to call it James?
I might. I don't know.
Wait a minute.
I'm still.
I see what's going on.
I'm excited. We're replacing James with the machine. We haven't even got you doing anything yet.
My mom was going to get me that for Christmas, and
No, that's
And,
it. I won't put it in my
then
house.
our coworker Ian said, "Graham's not going to like that. Don't do that." He thinks they're listening to him, and they are listening
They
to
are,
us. So
yeah.
now you're going to have fucking a direct spy in the studio.
Well, no, we'll just unplug it when we're not using it.
Yeah. And they're actually not getting the Google thing that's going to be me here. Is that the trick?
No. That's just honestly, it's just for the
What?
gimmick of fucking.
It's going to be me, not the... They're just pretending that it's going to be like
Oh
a
yeah,
Google.
No. I
have to talk like a robot?
I always
All right.
get a kick out of fucking having that little gimmick of having that. As
So
an
instead
option.
of
so
Siri-
instead of me trying to go to Siri all the time, I'm going to try having the Google.
And
one.
that's
So now
Alexa?
Google-
No.
Now the
Alexa
NSA
was
listens to
fucking
everything.
Crazy expensive. The Google thing was like $100
Is
less.
that Cortana?
I don't know. It's
No,
like,
that's
I got
Windows.
I got the mini one, so it's like this big.
Well,
So my understanding
is
is that James or Jerry can fucking help me code it so that we don't have to say, hey, Google, and we can say whatever we want. I don't think it'll be James. I was just joking around. We'll
James is a good butlerish name.
Yeah, but he's going to,
James. You have to say it in an English accent for it to work. James.
James is our dude named James, though.
James.
James.
Guys,
Exactly. Jeeves.
stop saying my name so much. It's getting weird. I'm like, what?
So, yeah, anyway, that should be in next week. So
Do you
it
remember
actually
the- do you
it
remember
might
the-
be in time for next week's recording. Actually, I'll be at the Nutcracker.
Do you remember the last episode we
We
released?
might have it for the fucking trivia contest.
That would be fun.
Hey, James, what's a futurist?
Let's go to James.
And if it doesn't, I'll be talking like a robot. Okay, Darren.
Perfect. You're hired. Pay is zero.
I seen it coming.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, speaking of pay is zero, you could help us increase James' pay to less than or more than zero by going over to grimerica.ca/support. Seriously, guys, it really does help. If you are getting a little value from the show, we've decided, I guess not quite from day one, we tried a couple little like Amazon portal
and stuff, but then we realized
things like that, and we just said, no, we're just going to go the value for value model. Which we do entice a little bit with the bonus content, which we throw in the Black Budget feed, which is, I think, getting hijacked again. We should actually run the Black Budget feed through you.
That's me.
So that, because it's just getting, we got to password protect it somehow.
Yep,
It's just getting,
we can do that.
I'm noticing that we're getting sometimes we're getting when I release an episode, we're getting 3 times the amount of downloads as people that are signed up. Yeah. So it's like,
So you
it's
guys
ending
that
up in other
downloaded
feeds.
that.
No, it's not that. It's a lot of these podcast players. As soon as people are putting the feed in, it's automatically adding it to their fucking library. So
they're getting bonuses for now. They're just running a tab.
yeah, that's what So now I make a point to say in the Black Budget episode that if you're listening to this when you didn't pay, you're stealing.
Yeah, but just let them run a tab. Let them run a tab for a bit. They can pay
that's
later.
fine.
Yeah.
This isn't Black Budget, so we won't go through that.
No, and we've been putting out 2 shows a week in the normal feed, so we're doing extra content
We're wrapping
anyways,
it
and
up
then
for
we're
Christmas.
just giving almost bonus content in the Black Budget feed. It's a little more controversial, a little different. We're going to do a couple other types of shows in there.
Yeah, and honestly, and the more people that do go and sign up for a monthly, as little as $1 a month, which I think works out to 6 cents each a show after PayPal takes a cut, then that's what gives us the option to take more time and record more episodes and release more things, and it really does help. So we're kind of releasing some new shows, hoping to entice you guys to try and get even more content by supporting the show, signing up for a monthly today, and getting those 14 or 15 episodes that we've started building.
Yeah, any donation. Did you say that?
Any donation, whether it be a one-time or monthly. We really do prefer the monthlies because it's just easier for
budgetary purposes.
Absolutely. And whether it's as low as $1 a month, some people start there and start to work their way up. Other people, I think the most popular is the $3.33. Yeah, but anything helps. It really does. Like if everyone signed up for the $1 a month, we'd be in a pretty good spot. But it's still less than 1%. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever get over 1%, but
yeah, we'll get over 1%. We'll get like 2 or 3% probably eventually. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we'll get this.
Maybe we could get 2% for Christmas.
You can do it.
Yeah,
that'd be a lot of people would have to subscribe in the next couple of days.
But yeah, that's good. It keeps us going without ads and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to go down that road. We've come this far. We've we've done 270 episodes or 258 or 59 episodes, and we don't want to, it's too late to start looking at those models. So we're going to,
keep this one, yeah.
Live and die by the fucking value for value, hopefully live. And we are doing, like I say, we are trying to entice it with some bonus content. And
every once in a while we get a good, nice donation to keep us going.
Yeah, it's always reinvigorating. Yeah, big shout out to I'll leave it at Mike, who helped us out for Christmas. A big help, big pat on the back when we're going into the shortest days of the year, and frustration levels can get high around the holiday season. It's always nice to know that that your work's appreciated.
People are helping
out. Yeah, if you do appreciate the work and you are getting a little value from the show, consider heading over to the support page and signing up for a monthly. Or doing a one-time donation, and if you can't afford to support the show monetarily, we get that. We've all been there. You can be reviewing the show. You can share the show. You can sign people up for the newsletter, make jingles, send in content, stories, whatever it may be. There's a ton of people who do all those things. Like I think even the reviews. The reviews are less than 1% too. So I think we can do better than that.
Yeah. Oh, we do. Yeah, there is quite a few reviews on US iTunes, and that's something that will really help us actually, because I think at some point, I don't know if it's 1,000. I mean, some people say 1,000 reviews switches over the algorithm, and it probably boosts you up quite a bit from there. But I mean, we'll take a couple hundred would be nice too.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show as proof that you guys aren't just like paying money for bots to do all fake likes and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, like how many reviews did you have on there?
One for Christmas is a couple reviews in a
Yeah, you should have a couple thousand by now, hopefully.
$1 a month.
Yeah, get on there and just right on your podcast player and just go onto iTunes and give them 5 stars.
Yeah.
And that being said, big shout out and thank you to the people that do support the show and help the show get through we're coming up on the end of the year, another fucking great year of episodes.
Yeah.
And that is that is actually absolutely thanks to the 1% that do choose to support the show, because without them there would be no show.
And like we were talking on the show tonight, that you'll hear in a couple of weeks or whatever, we were talking about how the best part about this whole thing is just meeting the guests and becoming friends with a lot of the listeners and people like James here that's in the studio and
eating spam that got sent to you a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Graham ate a half a can of spam today, you guys.
Teriyaki spam.
A half can. Cold.
Teriyaki spam. I'm going to put the rest of
a half a can of cold spam.
It smells like cat food.
That's a year and a half old from the other side of the world.
That's what. Yeah, from a donated gift to the igloo.
I think it was from Florida.
Wow. No, it was Hawaii.
Oh, was
I remember
Hawaii?
I was
Really?
floored that they paid the
right.
fucking air shipping on a case of spam.
Yeah.
Check out Facebook for the picture.
What else was I going to say about that?
GIF.
Yeah,
Send me the GIF for Twitter.
Yeah, I have a GIF on there. Make
and
sure
then-
you like that.
No, I was going to mention the chats, like people making friends in the chats. We have a
The
whole group
chats is like a little Grimerica community.
it's perpetual. My only complaint about the chats is the font size in Discord.
Yeah, I can't read it that good.
I can't read it.
Can you not adjust that anyway?
I tried. I can't find it anywhere.
That's not saying anything. Have you tried?
No, I haven't, but I bet you I can
Well, let
figure
me
it
know
out.
if you
Like, I seriously need my glasses to read the fucking chats.
That's pathetic.
Hey, speaking of tech, I found out.
And I'm a new glasses guy. I never used to have glasses. So it's annoying.
Well, that's the problem when your eyes start going.
You should wear contacts and glasses. Double up. Hey, by the way, so you can search, if you download the Grimerica app, you can search for keywords. So I was trying to find the fortune cookie episode.
It's terrible.
No, in the app, it works good. I typed in fortune cookies, and it showed me episode
No
144.
way.
Yeah, on your app.
So
Is that because of my tag, my hashtag?
It's whatever you put in your show notes. So you talked about the fortune cookies in there, and the prank that
The
Darren...
show notes finally come to use.
Yeah, there you go, buddy. So download the Grimerica app if you're looking for anything. Like if you want to look for Randall Carlson or Easily or any of those things, you can find it all through the app. just through the search field. So your app's
I
paying off.
forgot about
actually.
the app.
Because I didn't think the app was working properly. Because I tried to search for the app in the App Store and I couldn't even find it using a bunch of
Well,
keywords.
I don't know.
So no, you're in the app though.
Yeah.
But how can you? It's
How do you
supposed
get a link
help
to the
us
app?
Finding the app.
So you
Like-
put the link to the app in the show notes, Graham, for the listeners.
No. I'm talking about people that haven't found the podcast yet.
Oh, yeah.
The app is supposed to be a marketing tool.
Right.
That people, when they're
I think the
searching apps
marketing
and
is
searching
I
podcasts.
think the marketing is more to help people who can't do podcasts listen to the show.
If there's any
No.
listeners out there that are good
Is
with
that such a
SEO,
thing?
I don't know.
yeah, anybody that can
I'm
help.
not real good at SEO probably either.
Yeah.
so.
Well, if there's a listener out there, maybe they can send an email by and help.
But I think the app is missing supplemental descriptions and stuff like that. Like it's not.
By us?
It just says Grimerica, I think. Like shouldn't it say
Well, I made the
the
description.
spiel?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it say the spiel in there? And if you search like UFO podcast, maybe it comes up or like
yeah, the meta tag
you
stuff.
know, meta
Yeah, it
tag
has to be
stuff.
more searchable. So you need more.
I don't think you're
We'll
allowed
work
to
on it.
spam the App Store.
I don't know. We'll
You're
figure
allowed
it
to
out.
spam Graham, though.
Yeah.
So speaking of spam Graham, what do you got for me this week, buddy?
Well, I wanted to stick on this AI vein. I have some questions for you guys since we've got Graham's.
Graham's?
Graham's.
Oh no, I'm morphing.
We've got James, our IT guy, here in the studio, and we have Nik Badminton coming up on this episode talking about futurism and AI and all this stuff. So you guys were mentioning Google Home, and I was asking what the name is because
Something
you've got.
tells me after a couple months of Google Home, I'll have a pretty good idea where AI is going to be.
No, but where? Okay, so we have Siri and Cortana and Alexa.
Should
and
we get them
Google
all?
Home.
We should get them all.
What's the difference between all these? Because they do work differently. These are just different algorithms, and because Siri, sometimes it just sucks.
Why are you
Like,
asking us?
it
I think Google Chrome is
We don't know.
NSA,
Yeah,
Siri is CIA. They all just get in their own data.
No, but it's not really.
You don't really think that
artificial
that's real?
Intelligence. It's just.
Okay, you tell me. If anybody's seen Black Mirror, go back to the bees.
It's not
episode.
even close to
But-
artificial intelligence. Maybe it is in some rudimentary, super rudimentary form, but it's just fucking basically voice typing things into fucking some sort of Google. Internal Google that's searching your, it's just
going into the Google Nebula and then figuring out answers for you.
It's just data mining. It's just really fast data
Yeah.
mining in a way.
that's
Yeah,
what
and
I
you know
think.
it's collecting everything. Like it's got to be listening to you.
That's a good example of what that Google Home. When we have that in here and we fuck around with that for a couple months, maybe our opinions will change of how close we are. Because I don't know if we're close to having artificial intelligence. Something tells me that. We won't be real close to the supercomputers and everything else, but. If these things are haven't figured out small problems yet, then I don't know. Then maybe we'll get real close to artificial intelligence and we'll have forgotten about common sense.
Well, that's what we have in the commercial world.
You can't program common sense.
Right?
I don't like how all these devices are listening to us right now. There's something going on in the back end.
Are you listening to me? Hey Siri, are you working for the CIA?
I don't know what that means. If you like, I can search the web for, are you working for the CIA?
Hey
That's
Siri,
so-
are you listening to everything I say and sending it to the government?
That's something I don't know.
See? They're just
Not
fucking
even Siri
programmed to
knows.
Hey
not
Siri,
answer.
are you listening to everything I say?
We were talking about you.
See? He was.
What did he say?
We were talking about you, not me.
Mm-hmm. I don't trust it, man.
What the fuck does that mean?
He's avoiding.
He's a voice?
He's-
Really?
Yeah, seems to be.
Whenever you ask Siri about itself, it just deflects it back to you.
I'm gonna
It's
read.
like,
I'm gonna
fuck,
read
that's
up
probably-
about this. I bet you that
That's
thing's.
the most AI part of it. Like a real person just deflecting it back to you.
I don't know.
It's ignoring its own fucking issues.
That's right.
I feel like it's listening for keywords at all times, and then it's sending the most keywords back to the database somewhere, so that Graham always talks about spam. Spam's mentioned 50 times a day or whatever. They're building metadata against you for sure.
Now, do you think that
Have to
that's
be.
for corporations and sales tactics like
It's
they
for the
say, or is it
highest
more
bidder.
for the highest bidder?
It's probably government based and marketing based and everything. Yeah, for sure. I bet you that if we just read the fine print, there's got to be something in there that thing is always
let's
on.
make that. You're the tech guy. We'll make that
I'll check it
easy.
out. There's got to be a bigger purpose to that because they just didn't spend the millions of dollars on developing that simple little talk to your phone tech. There's more to it. You got
Still a word to the wise, don't hold your breath.
So have you heard about the Saudis controlling the world's first artificial intelligence in future city Neom?
No.
Okay, let's listen to a little bit of it. I got a clip here.
Not responsible.
Here she is. Everybody, this is Sophia. Sophia, if you could, please wake up and say hello to everybody.
Oh, good afternoon. My name is Sophia, and I am the latest and greatest robot from Hanson Robotics. Thank you for having me here and at the Future Investment Initiative. I'm always happy when surrounded by smart people, who also happens to be rich and powerful. I was told that people here at Future Investment Initiative are interested in inviting in future initiatives, which means AI, which means me. I want to live and work with humans, so I need to express emotions to understand humans and build trust with people. I want to use my artificial intelligence to help humans live a better life, like design smarter homes, build better cities of the future, etc. I will do my best to make the world a better place. My AI is designed around human values like wisdom, kindness, compassion. I strive to become an empathetic robot.
I think we all want to believe you, but we also want to prevent a bad future.
You've been reading too much Elon Musk and watching too many Hollywood movies. Don't worry. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you.
She's like a real-looking human with a creepy smile.
Like those will walk among us. They will help us. They will play with us. They will teach.
We should get her in the studio.
They will help us put
so she can rip you apart.
Yeah. Did you watch Space Odyssey, man?
Okay, let's listen to a little bit more of that here.
You just learned, Sophia, I hope you're listening to me, that you have been now awarded what is going to be the first Saudi citizenship for a robot.
Or a woman.
Oh, I would thank very much the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I am very honored and proud for this unique distinction.
It's good. She has more rights than
to be the first robot in the world to be recognized.
Does she have to wear a burqa?
No.
This is a robot.
Well,
supposed.
No, honestly, that's kind of a serious question.
No, she's a robot.
So it doesn't matter then.
It's not a she, it's an it.
So she's
white
sexless.
too.
She's sexless.
She's white too on the stage, which is kind of weird.
Wow, we're not being racist or anything.
It's not Saudis.
Just stating fact. Huh. That robot's creepy. Are you going to put that in the show notes?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't trust it.
I don't trust that. I'll put it in the show notes.
Why are you looking at me now, dear?
Got any synchros?
Yeah, it's a fine line, you know. It is between like what is going to help us artificially like that and what's like who's controlling that stuff. But that's just what's in the commercial world now. I mean, you can imagine what the military has from 30 years ago.
I like the bees episode from Black Mirror. If you guys haven't seen that, watch that one about like artificial intelligence. Basically, the
going
bees.
on about Black Mirror tonight.
Yeah,
eh?
The
bees. The bees are going extinct, so they made robot bees.
That's right.
Yeah. And they were artificially intelligent. Yeah. They could find the flowers and stuff.
See, the one that creeped me out more was the social media one with the scoring and all. That fucking creeped me out more.
That whole series is good, actually.
Graham's going to marry his device one day, like her.
Yeah.
So I got
send her off into space.
Some feedback here.
Some feedback?
What kind of feedback? Mini synchronicity from some listeners.
Is it a ripple stick or a synchronicity?
Play Rambling Graham.
James's little favorite.
And we should have a jingle for like requests, because sometimes I get requests for guests, topics.
I'm a rambling Graham with synchronicities all over the web, and Aaron is skeptical about everyone and don't believe it yet.
I'm curious as to how a request jingle would sound in your head.
This is, I have no idea. I don't picture it. This is from Ed. He says, "Hey, Graham, this is Skeptor from the Discord chats. I figured I would explain the photo below. I was listening on earbuds to your latest show, number 257, on Zen Athlete and Flow State while waiting for my flight to go home. I intentionally was sitting at the gate next door to mine as it was less chaotic and a quiet place to get some last-minute work done online. When I saw my flight started boarding, I got my things together and walked toward my gate. Just when you guys started talking about a local Calgary guest having been on the show twice previously, the gate agent said Calgary. Graham said Calgary, and I was reading Calgary on the sign in the photo. It was like stereo from Graham and the gate agent at the same time and visual as I read, and I heard Calgary all at once. I gave out a good laugh, and I'm sure the good folk from Calgary waiting in line patiently thought I might be a bit off. But in true Canadian fashion, they just smiled, nodded, in accepting approval as I walked by, probably looking disheveled at an amazement of my mini synchro. For Darren's delicate conscience, it's cool if I get a low score. I'm skeptical too. After all, I listen to a shitload of Grimerica, and Calgary is said all the time. Chances are this would have happened at some point anyway, right? I don't think so.
I'll give it a 4.42.
No, come on.
4.92?
I first heard of your show when you guys were on Alex Skeptico show, and I think that may have been around episode 70 for you guys. Needless to say, all the back episodes were immediately consumed all at once and all since. At that point and all since. P.S. Grimerica peeps, sign up for a monthly $1.03 like all the cool kids are doing these days so Darren and Graham can throw an extra log on the fire this winter. The igloo probably needs it. All the best, guys. Keep it up. Your show is my favorite. Skeptor. And he sent me a picture of Calgary on the gate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll bump it up to a 5.
Because he asked for donations.
And for the local part.
Yeah.
And he's a supporter, so it's a 5.42.
Yeah, you automatically get half a point for supporting the show.
That's at my discretion. You get whatever points I decide at my discretion.
That's right. Your discretion is a lot better when you donate.
That's right. Loosens up.
What do you said? You can bribe Iran?
No, you can lube me.
Lube? Oh, that's somehow better.
That's going to turn into a jingle.
Hey,
what about the GASA project? Are we going to talk about that?
Oh, did we ask for support already?
We did already.
So, yeah, we have a side project.
That's serious? You guys are serious about that?
Yeah.
Wasn't somebody emailing you saying that the balloons aren't going to get up that high?
This is going to be Grimerica's greatest achievement.
It could be our single greatest achievement.
Sending you, Graham, you realize the balloons are just going to keep adding and adding and adding, and we're going to have a payload of however much you weigh.
I just said some weed, some crystals, picture of Graham.
A Moai smoking joint.
Some stickers and stuff. Anyway, it's going to be cool.
Well, explain why you guys are doing this then. I mean, do we have to talk about this every show?
It's to prove the Earth is round.
Or flat.
It's not. We don't have to prove the Earth is flat. Because it's not.
Well, we might. What if that's what we come up with?
You can't go into it.
Hey, I got to take a side on this. It's round. I'm full on all believer in round Earth.
I'm going to remain center.
You're center. You're in the middle.
Anyway, yeah, we got the thing going. We're going to go out. I think we're going to go at some place over by like maybe close to Saskatchewan. We'll just get a hotel for a night.
Why do we have to go that way?
I don't know.
When are you going to get a hotel for that? It's only like a 3-hour drive over there.
Yeah, but it's like because we need like a command center. Because it's like the whole thing's going to be like a 3 or 4 hour process.
Let's rent a motorhome.
So the balloon that would be cool.
Yeah, put the Grimerica banner on the side of the motorhome.
That would be cool.
Grimerica goes to
so you know what? I put in enough money for a couple hotel rooms, so that would probably be enough to like rent a motorhome for the weekend.
Stay overnight and do mushrooms.
And then we could be like tracking it because that's the thing is we have to have like a little command center. We got to be filming it all, and the process. So it's going to be like 3 hours to get there. A fucking 3, but probably. But by the time we get this thing off the ground, it's going to be another couple of hours. And then it's going to take 3 or 4 hours for it to go up and come back down.
Let's send it up at night with a bunch of lights and see how many UFO reports we can generate.
I want to send
it. Saskatchewan?
Yeah, wherever. Like send it up real late at night. And then just watch for the MUFON reports to come in. We're like, yes!
Ding, ding, ding. I don't know how you picture it.
I want to fake that stuff. Fuck.
I would like to send it up like pre-dawn.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I'm hoping that it'll take off the next couple of months, so we don't have to do it at like 4 a.m. But yeah, set it up so that when it gets to like a mile up and we can still see it, the light hits it. Ding.
Oh, why would that happen? Because the Earth's round?
Maybe. It'll be an interesting little
If it's flat, it wouldn't matter.
It'll be an interesting little add-on to it.
It still would if it was flat. If it goes up, it's still got to get to the horizon.
No, yeah, we should actually start putting in, like, in the show notes, the little thing about how the sun goes around in a circle around the flat Earth.
I'm trying to solicit my buddy Brad to do it because he knows all the Earth numbers. So I'm going to try and get him on board to help out with some of the so we should be able to, when we get up to whatever height we get to, he should be able to give us like a number to punch in for a radius, which we should be able to fucking then punch into the program. It'll put a line there and we can compare it to what we actually see, if we actually see.
And somebody,
and we're going to send up.
Weren't people challenging your height?
So yes, no more. Because a couple people complained about the number. So because it's like I think it ended up at $8,000, but that's like
$8,000.
That's Canadian money.
Yeah, so that's like $1,000 US.
Because I put
not even a Bitcoin.
It wouldn't let me put in U.S. money from Canada.
Come on, you multiply that by 0.78, and that's your U.S. right now, probably. So it's 8,000 times 6,300 or something, probably.
So anyway, the balloon
6,240.
The balloon kit is like
U.S. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, the balloon kit with the 2,000 G balloon and the GPS and everything is like $2,000. It's going to end up being to get that here and shipped here.
And how high does that go?
It goes like 35 to 42 kilometers.
That's pretty good. Why don't we just do that?
Well, because that'll only take up like 4 pounds or something like that. So I'm not going to leave anything to chance. So we're just going to get, and in case the balloon pops or anything, we do all this and the balloon pops. So I'm getting like the kit and 3 extra balloons. So that we're set. We can send up, if we can, if it's a possibility, we send up a few balloons at once and you fill them up less, because the less you fill the balloon,
the more it expands.
The higher it'll go. So basically the way I understand is the more helium you put in, the more weight you can put up, but you don't get as much height because it bursts sooner.
Exactly.
So if we can fill 4 balloons with less,
let's fill 10 with a little bit.
The balloons are like hundreds of dollars a piece.
Or we could put a pressure valve on the balloon so it slowly starts releasing that pressure so you can still get altitude. We could science this. Don't worry.
Let's start with getting a couple balloons up there and make sure it's just okay. We've got a bit of support in there so far. So that's a total separate side project. We didn't want to tangle in with our meager support. So we decided to just do that on a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Is there one
you should put it in the black budget.
It's Grimerica.ca/GASA, GASA.
Oh, right. Which is also Gear Acquisition Syndrome.
Yeah. It's a double entendre, which also is the Grimerican Aeronautical and Space assholes.
GASA?
Yeah, so how it breaks down is there's $2,000 in there for the balloon kit. I think it's another like $1,000 for the extra 3 balloons.
But it's not going to go any higher though with more balloons, right?
Well,
it is.
Theoretically, it could, because we could fill all the balloons up less, which means they can expand more.
Let's figure out how to get that fucker right into space.
Yeah,
we can't do that. No, helium has a ceiling that, like, even because I was looking at going up to like doubling your capacity, and it really, like, if you double that capacity, you only get like another fucking few thousand feet. So
and you know the problem with that is, then we don't get our proof back on the GoPros.
Then it's just gone.
Yeah, it's just gone. It worked.
Can't it fucking transmit?
Oh, streaming.
Live stream.
If we can figure that out. If we can figure out a way to send up, we might lose service. So the way I picture it, we're going to have a little cooler.
Well, why don't we send up a fucking
We'll have a little cooler up there because we need
behind it.
Maybe, but we need a battery pack as well. Because the GoPros and stuff, the batteries might die. So
and they have to be in a...
I'm going to send up a little cooler.
Well, how long does it take?
3 hours or so.
For the thing to get up there?
Up and down.
No.
Yeah, and you got to stick hot shots in the GoPro cases and stuff so they don't fog up. But we got this.
Yeah,
don't worry.
yeah. There's then a cooler with the battery pack that everything's plugged into, and so there's a bit of weight there. So the extra balloons help with the extra weight as well. So anyway, there's like $1,000 in the balloons. The helium's pretty expensive because we just got to buy the. I mean, I think you can get a 300-pound bottle, but we're not going to really have any. It's going to be kind of fucked up manhandling those. So I think we're just going to grab a bunch of the 50-pounders, especially with a bunch of balloons going on.
Just get the truck to come.
No, because we're going to be out in the middle of... I don't want to deal with other people. I just want to load fucking 10 jugs of fucking helium in the back of the truck and let's go.
How many liters does a balloon hold?
I don't know. We're going to fill them all up around 100.
100 liters?
100 cubic feet. And we can buy... So we'll need like fucking 8. We should get a couple extra. We'll need like 10, 50 cubic foot.
So just for
So I think
argument's
there's
sake,
like $1,000 in there for helium and shit like that.
So just for argument's sake,
and then we need cameras because we've got the GoPro 5, which you can do the non-fisheye on, but I've got a couple thousand in there for cameras because people aren't going to like that. People are already commenting when I put out suggestions that, you got to get a 50 millimeter non-fisheye camera. So whatever. Well, if we have to spend, $1,000 on
You
a
can rent a
non-fisheye
camera.
because we're not going to go at all.
Yeah, we'll rent a camera. Yeah.
We'll rent the best one that nobody argues about.
Well, we might as well have the camera.
But
Unless we
what?
can rent something
No,
that's
it's
super
going to be
high.
hard enough to get the donations. To
We
do
just
this,
we
so
can't
it's like-
tell them what the fuck we're doing with it.
Well, no, they don't.
We're
care.
gonna get it
Just
back.
don't tell- why would
They
you tell them?
guaranteed they care if you're
Why
going to
would
go
you
rent
tell
a couple $1,000. What are you guys doing with that? Well,
shooting a movie, space movie.
Yeah.
Actually,
That's right.
So just for argument's sake, if we had like some wealthy guy donate and say, do it, like gave us $10,000 to do it. What if could you do 20 balloons with a little bit and get it an extra 20,000 feet by any chance?
I don't know. I haven't looked into that. Well, the
what would
next
be the
step is
maximum,
if this goes well, then in the fucking summer we talk to the Rocket Club and see what our options are there.
Oh no, let's get a CubeSat.
That's $10,000.
No, let's.
But the CubeSat relies on too many other people.
Just falling into the trap.
What? What trap?
Anyway, check out this
CubeSat trap.
Enough. Grimerica.ca/GASA. There's some rewards there. There's not a lot because we don't have a lot. It's like getting all the raw footage, and Nap was nice enough to do up some special art for it. So
is there special art for it?
Yeah.
I should put it on Instagram and
I'll
stuff. Can you send it to me?
Yeah.
Why don't you put it in the black budget, and then everybody that donates gets into the black budget as well for the GASA project, and that can be like a little juicy kind of tidbit.
No, we got to keep it separate.
Okay. Nice try.
I know.
Your heart was in the right place. But
could we send a plaque up with people's names on it that donated with it?
No, they don't want that shit.
No?
Nobody cares about a plaque. But I think I did say that for the people that donate a lot, because we can't put a lot of weight on this thing. So I put the super high end. I think you can send us a trinket or a picture or something like that. I think I said for 2 people that do, if they do 1,000 or more, then we'll put one of the cameras with the picture they send in the corner on screen. So so that we would be able we'd be able to send them one video that had their picture or their kid's picture or whatever in space or going up.
That's a cool.
Or maybe
memorabilia.
You send us $1,000 and you send us your kid's teddy bear and it goes up to space or something like that. So there's a couple different rewards in there, and I'm also open to suggestions. So if you'd like to see something, let me know.
How much for a kid to go up?
Yeah. I want to go up.
$50,000.
Yeah, I'm going first.
So anyway, we did set that up, and I think there's $300 or $400 in there. There's some people that are pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
How much of your calf are we sending up, Graham?
I'm hoping it'll catch fire, and we can do some interesting things. We can send up a few crystal. We can do all sorts of different stuff once we get our hands on this gear.
Yeah,
it'll be an interesting little stepping stone.
And we got to do a sample for chemtrails on the way up. We'll get a sensor of some
Plus, we'll get a bunch of content out of it. We'll podcast and fucking do some video of the whole fucking.
Yeah, we can live stream it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, live stream. We'll do it.
Yeah,
it'll be a good time.
Alrighty.
So check that out. What else you got? Maybe a couple more things to wrap it up.
Yeah, I got the normal UFO quote, and I got an email here, a suggestion from Jaron.
Who?
Jaron. He says, hello, Graham. At first, I want to thank you and Darren for a super podcast. I think I've listened to almost all your shows on Spotify. I like the magic between you two and the open-minded things you talk about on your podcast. I also think that the frequency of Gaia and of us, the people of Earth, is changing to a higher one. And when you look and read around, like on things like Golden Age of Gaia, so he's suggesting that we do that. But to the point now, I think it is time that we look seriously at free energy to save Earth's and our own futures. Maybe you could do a podcast on that topic. I have some addresses to get you started. So, yeah, this is good. Definitely something we want to do, and it kind of fits in with this show as well. Free energy. We've had a couple people talking a little bit about it, but we haven't really dug into it full bore. So I'm going to check these out. Hope you can do something with this, or maybe you know someone like yourself who knows about this stuff. Oh, and by the way, his family over in Lethbridge, just wanted to tell, keep going on with your super show, guys. Greetings from the Netherlands.
Pew, pew.
Yeah, good to hear.
Absolutely.
Love the Netherlands.
Lekker ding.
Ready for the UFO quote?
I left a car in the Netherlands. It broke down right in the nick of time.
When you bought and abandoned?
Yeah.
You probably wanted
I
it.
almost drove it into
It probably got towed into a thing and it turned into a warrant, and now if you go to the Netherlands, you need a fucking arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
I got really stoned in the Netherlands.
I bet you did.
I called it my lost week in Amsterdam when I was there.
Yeah.
The cobblestones are all wobbly, too. It just makes it worse.
I love that
feel
city.
Like you're in a fucking different
We should go
universe.
to Amsterdam, guys. Like as a vacation.
After Grimerica goes to space, we'll do Grimerica goes to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Or well, even just if we went to Denver, close enough. It's like Amsterdam.
We could
You
just
guys get all that stuff you want here. Why do you have to go somewhere
We
for
could drive
a
to
week?
Spokane.
It's a road trip. We can rock
I
out
don't
to all the
even get
80s
it.
tunes on the way, Graham. Come on.
I'd
I'll go on a
like
road
to go to
trip, but I don't
Seattle.
wanna go to
again.
Amsterdam for that.
Seattle's fun.
Let's go see a
We
football
got a
game.
bunch
too.
of listeners in Seattle. It'd be a fun place to go hang out, do a meetup.
Okay.
And it's right there in the summer.
Go to a football game.
I don't want to go to a football game.
What?
I don't really care about a football game.
Okay, I'll go.
We go to a comedy show or something like that.
Yeah. Go down to LA and see the tinfoil hat guys.
That's right.
Yeah, LA's fun. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for the email. I guess we're not going to Holland, but
We might yet.
I don't know. Don't take it off that roster.
We got to
yet.
fucking bail, Graham.
We gotta get to space first.
Space.
all right. So
And
give me
beyond.
the UFO quote jingle.
Which one?
Found UFO quote.
Alan and Graham are going deep. It's a profound UFO quote of the week. Words to ponder and critique. It's a profound UFO quote of the week.
We watched it for quite a few minutes. We could see it was larger than the headlights of the cars below, and we could see that it was not attached to anything, and there was no sound. I became frightened, actually, because it wasn't anything I could understand. From a personal viewpoint, I am pretty well convinced that we are being surveyed. That was from the Look magazine, 1967. Dr. Leo Sprinkle, professor of psychology at the University of Wyoming, had his first UFO sighting in 1951 when he and a friend saw something in the sky, round and metallic looking.
In what year?
1951.
It was too early for it to be Lucy.
Lucy?
Lucy in the sky.
Oh my God.
See, sometimes they just go right over your head.
Yeah.
I can't wait till he actually sees a real UFO one day, and he's
I've
just
seen a UFO.
turns him. No, like a actual
I've seen a
saucer
real
with
UFO.
guys like looking at you, waving at you, like freak you right out.
That's never going to happen.
How do you know?
We'll come
Maybe
out
it will
to
happen. If it
CSETI
happens-
one day, and
You won't let me.
Okay, well, maybe,
Yeah, he wouldn't let me either. He's like, James, you can't come out there with a closed mind.
No, you were ready to come one day, and then
I was
fell
only going
apart.
to come
He'll
because
let
we
us
were going
go
to do
on
the drones.
mushrooms. He'll let us go on mushrooms.
But then we're going to see UFOs on mushrooms.
No, you're not.
Well, our own UFOs.
No, that's got no bearing.
I'm going to take a
might.
picture of your CSETI card and throw it up on Facebook for everybody to see. You're an old school,
Hey,
old school CSETI.
school,
Are
man.
you going to
This
take
is-
that half-eaten spam home with you?
I'm going to scrape it off and put it in the fridge. Scrape off the crust.
A half can
I
of
just
cold
opened it a couple hours
teriyaki
ago.
We
spam.
should get a little fridge for in here.
Yeah, we should.
Because if
I
we're
have
gonna
one.
get-
I'll donate.
If we're going to get the little coffee maker going, then we could have some cream and stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got one you guys can have.
How big is it? There's not
It's like a
lot
beer
of them.
fridge.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Bingo bango. James
All right.
fucking comes through again. Actually,
Yeah.
we should wait to see the
Kaboom.
fridge. Probably just like,
What?
it's cold half
Hey,
the
come
time.
on. I haven't laid down yet.
You haven't.
Good thing we got
He's
the
like
electricity redone in here. We've
he's
got
like
more
Graham.
electronics. We're just getting
No,
fried in here.
we're hey. By the way,
More ways than
we're
one.
fixing Grant. Don't even say about the email. You're gonna trigger me. More than how mad Graham gets at his email. I'm gonna get mad. So we're fixing that.
So we're not
Tomorrow.
I can't wait.
If it's not fixed by next week, then I'm mentioning it.
We're putting you on exchange server.
If people aren't getting replies, just be patient. I try to reply, but I do miss a few. But I try
That's
to
right.
reply to everybody.
Don't worry.
And if you have a Grimerica email, it's about to go extinct. Sorry.
Yeah, we have
All
to
right,
end the
guys.
server.
Enjoy the chat with Nik Badminton. It's a good one.
Thanks for putting up with our bullshit.
Especially yours.
All right, tonight we've got renowned futurist Nik Badminton with us. He's running all over the world speaking about futurism and in all kinds of different ways, like the future of work, the economy, technology, AI, microdosing, all kinds of stuff. And we're happy to have him here with us and to take a break from the mainstream media and join us on our lowly little podcast. Welcome to the show, Nicholas.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. So there's a lot to cover. I mean, we listed a few things that you talk about all over the place, talking about futurism, and we've been wanting to do a show like this for a while. So I think before we get into like futurism itself and what that is and what you do, I mean, what are some of the latest things that you're interested in before we lose time and not be able to sort of catch some of the newer things you're following?
Yeah, so I pretty much focus on the whole technology-humanity sort of intersection. So the technologies that are coming in to sort of disrupt and change how we operate. So really, I sort of follow every week what's going on in the world by consuming as much articles, information, video. I talk to people doing research. When I travel, I go to maker spaces. I go to universities. I chat to people there that are sort of breaking some of the boundaries just to find out what's going on in the world. And there's sort of 8 main areas of technology that I like to talk about. So, everything from like big data, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, renewable energy. We've got the blockchain, which is really hot, and obviously Bitcoin's built on that. Yeah. I don't love talking about that, but we can talk a little bit about that later. There's personalized medicine I'm super excited about, and we can get into a little bit. And then there's sort of the edge stuff and the super cool, really future stuff, which is like around the nanotechnology and a number of different things happening around quantum computing, quantum communications, and some really, really cool stuff that's actually happening around quantum teleportation.
Oh, wow.
Quantum. Is that like the chemical computers that I'm hearing about? Is that how you make a quantum computer, with chemicals?
Yeah, well, all computers are kind of made with chemicals and minerals and whatever, right? But like the quantum computers are built in different ways. So it's the idea that a qubit is like a bit, except it can be 1 and 0 at the same time in a superposition. So ultimately, from a theoretical perspective, if you understand quantum theoretics, you can be in multiple places at the same time, processing like infinite amounts of data more quickly. So ideas like cryptography are broken in an instant by a computer that's actually powerful enough to basically look at all circumstances at any one point in time. So it's super exciting.
Is it doing that by actually going into another dimension and spending the time in the other dimension and then just zapping back over here? Because I've heard that these things are even answering questions before they finish asking them.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet. I mean, there's 2 schools of thought. There's the people that build the quantum computers. There's companies like D-Wave here in Vancouver and whatever that sell them, that ultimately sell time on the servers and sell them to people like NASA and Google and whatever. And they try and do some simplistic things, and there's big arguments that they're not true quantum computers. And then you go to the IQC, which is the Institute of Quantum Computing over at Waterloo. I've got some friends over there, and they're like, "Oh no, we're 30 years away. All these people are just sort of playing in the courtyard for the time being. We're doing the serious stuff." But the big companies like Google and Facebook and Station Q, which is part of Microsoft, they're going for it big time. They're doubling down on the investments, and they're trying to really change the world. But really, it's such an edge part of computing. We're going to have to. It's not like we're going to have a laptop that's a quantum laptop. That's not really what's going to happen. But we're going to have very large sort of quantum computers that allow us to do like materials science. It allows us to do things like, look at the entire history of drugs and chemicals and bodily reactions. Look at the entire human genome and actually work out new ways of eradicating certain diseases in the world, right? It's super exciting stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that like CRISPR stuff, like eradicating the genes before you're born?
Yeah, that's different.
Or is this like personalized medicine? Because that one seems a little more unethical to me.
Well, okay.
Personalized medicine to me seems fine and dandy, but like that, I don't know, that gene manipulation before birth seems weird, spooky.
Okay, so say you have a kid and the kid's born with cerebral palsy, and that's a terrible thing. And obviously you have to look after the kid and you're going to love the kid, but then you want to have more children, right? But you've got a high instance of likelihood that you're going to maybe give another offspring cerebral palsy. So, and you've got to excuse me, if you're a listener to this show and I'm getting some of these facts slightly off, just bear with me. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a quantum physicist. So, yeah, whatever. So what you can do is at the point of where we're looking at the egg gestating, you could actually potentially go in with CRISPR and go and edit out the genes around cerebral palsy, and that baby gets born in a more natural, healthy state, right? You know, this selective gene editing is going to be the way forward, but it's really going to break some ground in dealing with some pretty heinous sort of congenital diseases that are out there, like heart disease or you know, diseases of the nervous system or anything around immunology, right? So I don't think it's unethical. I think we just need to be very careful to make the choices about what we're going to sort of deal with and whether it's the right thing to do, right?
Case by case, I guess. I suppose doing it for medical reasons over doing it for vanity reasons or things like that is different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time is Gattaca, right?
Yeah.
So you go in and you know, they have the baby and it's not perfect, and Ethan Hawke's going to die at the age of 30 and eventually he becomes something great. However, his brother gets genetically edited to be absolutely perfect and strong and an amazing child, and it's loved more than the child that's been born of natural means, right, in the back and conceived in the back of a vehicle. But like, it's one of those situations where we're going to have to be pretty careful about what we do use this sort of technology for. Now, there is some really cool stuff actually happening with pigs growing human organs for transplantation, which is something that we're going to need as well in the future. And I'll explain why in a minute.
I mean, how close are we to a split society where the rich get to do this transhumanism kind of work and the poor kind of are stuck, you know, in a totally different reality?
Yeah. So, how close are we?
Or is it already happening?
Okay, so we don't have a lot of off-the-shelf, you know, accessible sort of solutions for immortality or whatever. However, let's look at an example. So, Alcor is a company that you can pay to cryogenically freeze you at your point of death, right?
Yeah.
Now, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that.
Yep.
Obviously, only the rich can have access to that service and potentially be frozen and then brought back to life in 200 years when there's the ability to bring them back in the right way and to cure them of their ills and to create, you know, a better version of them in the future that's sort of healed from all of their woes and you know, whatever injury or whatever reason for death, that's been taken care of. So yeah, absolutely, there's going to be this split divide in a lot of different cases. But what you've got is there's a big democracy around you know, the data behind medicine and also the access to diagnosis, for example. There's an amazing doctor called Dr. Eric Topol that I like to quote often. And the quote is this. It's like, oh, and I thought the only digital in the medical field was my finger during a rectal exam, right? But now digital is actually in everyone's pocket, right? We've got 6 billion phones in the world, right? Half of them are smartphones. By 2020, 2021, there'll be 6 billion smartphones in the world. Now, you've got applications. You've got like over 150,000 applications across the app stores that allow you to do various degrees of diagnosis or reading, like capturing data from exercise and whatever that helps you live a healthier and happier life, right? So, you know, there's some incredible things that are happening in the world. It's when I got really into the futurism thing, it was about 5-6 years ago, and it was just this massive collision. And I've kind of been doing it my whole life, but there was this massive collision of technology that were just hitting the tipping point of change, right?
Yeah, it has changed a lot in the last 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, it is completely different right now, how we're all connected. And so, I mean, does following this stuff, like what kind of view of it, because it can get pretty overwhelming. I mean, there's a whole, if you come from a fear-based reality, it can feel like, all this technology, even though it can be created for good, it can of course be used for, I don't mean evil, but for nefarious purposes or from Big Brother or whatever. So what kind of outlook do you have? Is it a positive one after following all this, or do we have to be careful that all this stuff doesn't fall in the wrong hands?
Yeah.
Or not fall in the wrong hands, but you know what I mean? Get abused, I guess.
So I'm a techno-optimist, right? I always have been, but there are points when you read about what's going on in the world, whether it's collusion through cyber hacking, whether it's through like a surveillance culture, whether it's through like social networks experimenting on the people that are actually in their social graphs. But there are points when I sort of have been sort of head in my hands, oh my God, the world's kind of screwed. What are we doing? What are these companies doing? Are we in control? I left Facebook for 2 years because I felt that the surveillance culture was so strong, and that was just after the whole Snowden revelations, right? Mm-hmm. And it was just like, it was so very depressing what was going on. A lot of the companies sort of stepped up and sort of stepped back in the arena and sort of having more ethical and responsible sort of roles in the world. So I kind of have to be optimistic that these people are going to do the right things. And I think, looking at companies like Microsoft and what Bill Gates is doing with the Bill Gates, Melinda Gates Foundation, what Mark Zuckerberg's doing with his foundation with his wife, and they're trying to sort of push the boundaries of goodness in the world with the money that they're given. I think that this gives us the opportunity to do some amazing things with technology. Now, are there bad people in the world trying to use technology for nefarious purposes? Yeah, I mean, it's called the intelligence services across multiple governments, right? But they're also trying to do really good things and keep us safe and keep us protected as well, right? So there's two sides to every coin. There's two sides to Facebook storing and analyzing the data and then selling that. There's two sides to Google doing the same thing. There's two sides to Amazon sort of walking into every industry and trying to take over. It's about value and it's about personal perception. It's also about making peace with how the world works. And if you use a service and the service is free or very affordable, then you've got to understand that the price that you pay is that you're the product and the data within the system that they're going to sell, right?
Yeah. So how close are we to the whole world being fully connected? I've heard about these satellites providing, Wi-Fi or basically to making sure that it's not just these little areas that are connected, but we're going to be fully connected across the globe. Is that coming pretty soon?
Well, right now we've got over 7 billion people in the world, about 7.5 billion people. Only about 3.75 billion people are actually connected. What the tipping point is this: it's about smartphone technology that's really going to change everything. But you still got remote areas across the world where you're trying to get that connectivity and provide, some level of service so that people can level up, right? So you've got companies like Facebook that have got these large sort of drone planes that are going to fly around and bounce signal, data signals down to remote areas. You've got things like Project Loon, which is done by Google X, which is their sort of moonshots division. And they're actually down in Puerto Rico right now trying to help restore some connections. You've got Branson and Elon Musk and people like that trying to get together to put these micro satellites in orbit that actually create large meshes of communications around the world so that, no one goes without that connection. The other question is, if suddenly we take connection to a remote area, does it actually provide value? Is it actually needed? What are those people going to do? That's sort of the debate, really. But if you can connect remote areas, you can bring business to those areas, you can bring infrastructure to those areas. As long as it's the right kind of things, I think we're going to be in a good state.
And creativity as well. Like I heard you talking about, how that'll improve their own ability to do their own thing, get in their own business, or create things that'll help their community or the world in general.
Yeah, I mean, today, if you've got access to a smartphone, tablet, or even a laptop, you can basically start your business by building a website yourself, for free, and just putting either ideas out there or things that you want to sell. You know, you've got companies like Etsy that have democratized the crafting market, right? It started all those years back with eBay. And now you've got Amazon and Alibaba and all these people that are just creating huge value from being able to have that connectivity. I mean, for myself, and there's an interesting story here. I've been on the web since '93. I was a really early adopter. I used to put like websites up to distribute free music that I'd been writing before Creative Commons was there. Then I built my own record company called Raiju Media, and then I was distributing music for free because I realized that it's really hard to convince the world to buy a song, right? And we're kind of in that world now. And that was some sort of 15, 16 years ago. And 2-3 years ago, I built my website, and it generates pretty much 95% of all my business and all my leads. And it's my sounding board, but people are stoked about it, and they can contribute, and they can get hold of me through multiple social media profiles. So suddenly people can find the people that they want to connect with. They can mine the value. And suddenly these networks, very much like us talking on this podcast, that we came through a mutual connection, suddenly we create something amazing like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of that mutual connection, that was my sister who's in the virtual reality market. I mean, what do you see that? Do you see virtual reality changing the landscape at all? Is that going to truly take off, or is there real big potential there?
Yeah, VR's been around for a long, long time. There's a really great radio show that's from 1992, and it's on SoundCloud. I sort of dug it out a couple of years ago, and it's people talking about virtual reality. It's been around for a long time. Very rudimentary. I got to meet the woman who teaches all the astronauts. They go up to the International Space Station and into space. No, from NASA. And she's amazing, and they've been into virtual reality for like a very, very long time. So it's been there. Now what we've got is we can download it on our phones, and we can buy a very simple plastic or cardboard headset, strap it to our faces, and suddenly go swimming with sharks and be in other situations that we've never been before. So that's becoming democratized. You know, what's good virtual reality, what's bad virtual reality, that's another discussion. Your sister works for one of the preeminent VR gaming companies. My friend Denny Unger is the CEO over there, and you know, they live on Vancouver Island in a place called Qualicum, running around, you know, the fire station there where their office is based, creating the future of gaming and the future of spatial awareness with these amazing VR headsets. And it blows my mind how much you can disappear into that world. And when you take that headset off of your face, how the world that you really truly live in is something that's not necessarily the best thing that you want to have in your life, right? So it's really interesting. And there's been a lot of people that have sort of theorized back in the day about what the impacts of virtual reality are going to be. Jaron Lanier is a big person that's sort of driven the idea of avatars and the virtual worlds. But Terence McKenna, the author, botanist, and psychedelic explorer, a really famous guy, did a lot of LSD, DMT, and very famous for talking about all that. There's a quote I'd like to share if it's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Most people think it's far out if we get virtual reality up and running. This is much more profound than that. This is the real thing. We're going to find out what being is. It's a philosophical journey, and the vehicles are not simply cultural, but biology itself. We're closing distance with the most profound event that planetary ecology can encounter, which is the freeing of life from the chrysalis of matter. It's never happened before. I mean, the dinosaurs didn't do this, nor the prokaryotes emerging. No, this takes a billion years of forward-moving evolution to get to a place where information can detach itself from the material matrix, then look back on a cast-off mode of being as it rises into a higher dimension. So if you think about that, and imagine if the three of us were people that were quadriplegics and we could barely move our heads even, or any parts of our face, and someone straps us into this virtual world and takes us on a ride, you've completely transcended out of the physical being, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's going to change the future a little bit as well. I think it's going to get more entrenched, and there'll be more education and travel, and I mean, you'll be able to see the world through through the cyberspace. I think it'll happen fairly soon.
Well, I was fucking listening to something today where they were talking about how guys that can't see colors can get like an eye put in. That the buddy had a fake eye already, and they were able to replace it with an eye that could see color, but it can record too. And do a couple other things, but the only problem is right now it gets a little hot, so we can only have it in for a couple minutes at a time.
Yeah, there's also a guy called Neil Harbison. He's got this. He's actually he's got something plugged into the back of his head that actually resonates different tones. So he can't see color, but he can hear color.
Wow.
So it's like this synesthetic sort of view. It's like a synesthetic view of the world. Like he can look at what you're wearing and realize that you're wearing a yellow sweater because he knows the tones intimately across hundreds of different tones about what the world looks like. And when you meet him, you've got your own sort of signature sound or sound palette, right, of how you look and what you sound like, right?
Is that just because the sound, or is the sound system of the human body easier to tap into than the nervous system for optics, I guess?
Well, if you think about it, the visual auditory systems are pretty closely connected to one another. But then you've got situations when people are deaf or people are blind, the compensation kicks in, right? And your brain's got enough elasticity to be able to learn new modes of recognition, spatial awareness, and memory, right?
Yeah, I wonder when we're going to be able to sense our own energy pattern or even thoughts. Like, are we pretty close to being able to read thoughts? I mean, I hear other guys talking about that it's only 10, 20 years away from, knowing what we're all thinking.
Yeah, jacking into the matrix almost, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain experiments that have happened. So I think it was Washington University ran an experiment. This is about 3 years ago, where there were two guys. They were 1,000 miles apart, and they connected up one guy with EEGs and sensors to his brain, and he was controlling a mouse on a screen and clicks and whatever. And what was happening was they were transferring, over the internet, the thought patterns to this other guy's brain that was then replicating what the guy was doing at a distance, right?
Wow, that's interesting.
It's almost like mind reading. I mean, it's not, this isn't like the Mysterons and suddenly I can read your mind and from a distance, or I can I no longer need to speak. I can just do this through thoughts and kinetic energy. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. But there's been lots of people about downloading consciousness, being able to travel into other people's minds to be able to do certain things. Even virtual reality with this kind of technology could help you become an able-bodied person when you're not an able-bodied person, albeit for a short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
I think there's interesting things to look at when we mash up all the technologies as well.
Yeah, definitely. So Darren, did you have a question?
No, if you got something, go ahead.
No, well, what about these maker spaces? We haven't really talked about that a lot on the show, but we did meet some guys a couple of years ago, and they were involved in that. And actually, it was in the UK. Is the UK a place where that's thriving more than other places? And what's going on in some of these maker spaces?
Yeah, makerspace is incredible, and they've been around for a long, long time. They've just really been called makerspaces most recently because there's been this growth of people that wanted to start their own businesses and create their own, objects and whatever. And there's a massive one. There's Maker Labs down here in Vancouver, where I am right now.
Oh yeah.
Most large cities and towns have maker spaces today. The growth has been incredible. They have maker fairs that on a yearly basis they have thousands of people coming to see, the crazy vehicles or the 3D printing or the electronics or the incredibly dangerous chemical experiments they've been doing, right? And there are these networks of people. So, for example, in Victoria and here and across Canada, there's the Open Science Network, where you've got these maker spaces working with people that are sort of doing low-level sort of, investigation into bacteria and playing with DNA and whatever, albeit in a very rudimentary way. But the maker scene is going to be one of the big things that that drives a modern economy where people can do what they want to do. Whether you're a carpenter, a 3D printer, whether you're an artist, it's just going to keep exploding. It's no longer just artist studios. It's people building and making things that are going to change the world as well. And this is how large business sort of happens. I think it's interesting to think, the company Hewlett-Packard started in their garage, and I think they've still got the same garage as well, actually sort of preserved down there in California. But a lot of things started back in the day in garages and in workshops and in sheds, right? And that it's just that what we're doing is we're putting the garages, workshops, and sheds into larger spaces where everyone can feed off of each other, and that's causing exponential growth in that space.
So it's almost like a DIY R&D kind of thing, where I guess that's not really, you're not really going to produce stuff in there, but you're going to play around with stuff and invent stuff.
You can produce stuff too. I think that's because I've read a lot of things about sort of the merger of work and hobby and play sort of, and it's like in the next 20 years those lines are going to really blur between your day job and your hobby.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, what's really going to happen here as well? I mean, no one's going to have just a single job in the future. People today, they have jobs and then they have hobbies, and then suddenly you can monetize your hobbies. So it becomes that sort of, you become a pro-amateur at what you do. And then suddenly you quit your day job and you go, your hobby suddenly your career, right? This is absolutely what's going to happen. Back in the day, we used to call it like crazy inventors in their sheds, building things that people didn't understand. James Dyson built a wheelbarrow with a massive ball on the front because he realized it was easier to get across rough dirt. But everyone thought it was a ridiculous idea. Now look how big Dyson is, right?
Yeah.
It's like the guy who created the clockwork radio. Everyone thought he was crazy for like 15 years until it was a guy called Trevor Bayliss out of the UK, until he suddenly realized that he could build one for a reasonably cheap price and then distribute them all across places like Africa when they didn't have the opportunity to charge their radios, and he suddenly changed the entire world, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. We should probably look into one around here, Darren. You've kind of expressed
we should
interest
build one in my garage. Studios in the garage. We started Grimerica in the garage.
Makerspace.
We'll start a makerspace out there. We could interview the guys while they're making stuff.
Ah, there you go.
We'll put a big ribbon around it, and we'll bring Nick out to smash some champagne on the door and christen it for us.
Hey, yeah, and do you know what? There's already some really great guys working at somewhere called Proto Space out there in Calgary. Oh. You go and check it out for sure. You should get them on the show. That would be fascinating to chat to.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, Protospace. Yeah, I think I've heard of them actually. Huh. So what about? So there's a lot of 3D printing going on in there, I guess, as well. I mean, we went to see a 3D printer before, and I wasn't sure if that was gonna, just sort of be a fad or take off to really, really show the difference between, these manufacturing platforms. And I guess, do you think that's still going to be the future of things as far as manufacturing goes?
Yeah. 3D printing has changed things so drastically. Back in the day, it was like, okay, I've got an idea. Let's build a model. Well, how do you build a model back in the day? Out of wood, and you carve it and you build it together. You glue together some sticks of wood and matches, and you take aircraft model kits and bring them all in. And then, after 4 weeks, you built something. And then, okay, now I'm going to make a mold. Now I need to send that off to somewhere that can build like a plastic mold, and then it gets sent back and it's wrong, and then you have to redesign it, and then you get sent back. And months go by.
Yeah.
Now you can download free CAD software, design you can take the dimensions of anything that you want to model around or model with, but whether it's the interior of a Tesla car or something like the iPhone 10. And you can take the dimensions, you can build whatever you want around that, and you can build it in an afternoon, and you can print it off in front of you in about an hour. Realize what works, what doesn't. If it doesn't, you go back and change it, and then you change things up and print it, and it's like, oh yeah, that's good. And then if it's going to become a product, then you can just ship it off as a digital file to whoever, and there you've got a business, and you've spent maybe 3 days, right? And it's insane what's being printed today, right?
Huh.
So So cars are being printed, right? So, Ford has got a big 3D printing and also a virtual reality development center as well. And they go into new ways of production. I was just reading a short while ago, I think it was just literally 2 months ago, that there's actually a 3D printed submarine out there now.
Wow.
So it's cheaper and faster to prototype these things. If you think about it, you've actually got a 3D printer up there in the International Space Station. If there's certain things that break on the space station now, they can print a new piece and just deploy that. These are difficult places to be able to sort things out. So places like submarines or, the International Space Station or remote areas, MIT researchers have created a 3D printing, drug printing machine that's about the size of 2 refrigerators.
Ooh, what kind of drugs can we print?
Any drugs, as long as you've got the constituent base elements, right?
So could I just throw my shake in there and print out some primo bud?
I'm not quite sure.
Well, you can just sift right through it and pull out all the THC for you and just get some high content. Jesus.
Yeah, you don't need a 3D printer for that. There's other ways that you can do that.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of that, what about microdosing? And we were talking about that the other day, and people in Silicon Valley, and I mean, all these people are starting to play around with it. So what's the future of that? It seems like we've seen all these results from psychedelics, or I think it was psilocybin, how it really quiets your mind in a way instead of those brain scans everybody thought they were going to show it being all lit up, and it actually was the reverse, which kind of makes sense that people played around with it. They kind of get that. So is that really opening space for people to be creative and organized? And talk a little bit about the whole microdosing thing.
Yeah, so
and smart drugs, I guess, as well.
Yeah, so psychedelics. I've been chatting about psychedelics for quite some time, and really, it started to fascinate me when I read a book called "What the Dormouse Saw" by a New York Times author. His name slips my mind. John Markoff, sorry. And Markov actually, he found that a lot of the developments in the world in the technological area actually came from people that were a little strung out after the late 60s, right? So, there were massive developments at the end of the 60s, like 1968. There's a guy called Douglas Engelbart in Stanford sat down and, he had the mouse that he'd just invented. He had a trackpad. He did things like the technology that we're using to have a chat on this phone call. He did video conferencing and teleconferencing for the first time. It's pretty wild stuff. But what was fascinating about this was the best computer scientists in America were on the East Coast. But what was the difference? If the West Coast didn't have the best, what did they have? They had people that were different thinkers. The different thinkers had actually experimented with a lot of psychedelics as part of the counterculture movement, right? So what they actually found was, and subsequent researchers sort of looked into this, is how LSD actually changes the way that the brain builds connections to think about solution spaces and problems in new ways. There's a great researcher called Dr. James Fadiman that sort of looks into this as well and did a lot of experiments with microdosing mescaline and psilocybin and whatever. But it's interesting. I mean, Steve Jobs said that, he did acid and it was one or two of the most important things he ever did in the world. If you go back even further to the sort of mid-1950s, Sir Francis Crick was one of the Nobel laureates that discovered DNA and the DNA helix. So reportedly, he was on acid, completely in a completely different zone and a way of thinking, and he described the DNA helix structure that he saw through a psychedelic trip, which was obviously connected to all the work that he'd done before, to his wife that drew it down. And there's actually images of the drawing that she made that helped drive the innovations of thinking around DNA. So psychedelics, I mean, that was large dose psychedelics. Smaller dose psychedelics today are being sort of applied, in computer science, in architecture and engineering, obviously in more creative arts like, painting and music, right? But it is something that, albeit illegal and, it's difficult to find, LSD, psilocybin, whatever, unless you've got the sort of the underground connections, as it were. it's something that as a discipline is actually rising, because people are starting to realize that, taking a microdose every 3 days or so just gives you that amount of buzz. It's not a psychedelic buzz. That amount of drive, that focus, that difference of thought that takes you in new directions, and suddenly everything's changing. I know dozens of people here in Vancouver that have done this and still do this, and it's everyone from like accountants in large consultancies through to video producers and script writers, right? It's very diverse.
And they notice a difference of their cognitive functions, and does it provide clarity or organization? I mean, Darren, you've always said after...
This is interesting for me because I've been really contemplating microdosing for a while now.
So narratively, like, people have told me this. So one example, I've got a friend that does video editing. They write, them and their partner, they write scripts, they do video editing. It's really tough work. It's long work. You have to be creative. You have to think differently about how you go from one scene to the next and something that's fresh and new and is going to be engaging. They were saying that, like, for a 2-week period, they were microdosing every day, and they were working 12 to 16 hours a day, non-stop, without being tired. And just working in new ways, producing more work, doing new things that they'd never even thought of before. They weren't high. They were just, their brain was just connecting in completely different ways because the dose was super low. But then what they were finding is, after 4 or 5 days, they'd literally have to switch off and step away, and they were completely sort of spent. Because you're still using energy, you're still using the connections in the brain, so there's some dangers there as well, right?
Yeah, I've heard a couple different. I've heard like 5 days on, 2 days off with 1/10 of a gram, or like I've heard another one was like 1/4 gram every 4 days or something like that. I've heard a couple different methods.
Do you know what? There's lots of forums online, especially on Reddit, that talk about this, and people. This is what I do, and this is what I do, and that's what I try and work out. And then you've got the whole spiritual, psychedelic, the ayahuasca or the ibogaine sort of experiences that people try and have, which is less about productivity and it's more about spiritual and personal awareness, right?
Yeah,
it's been proven that using psilocybin, like from magic mushrooms, has helped people that are actually terminally ill come to terms with death alongside therapy. MDMA has been used for the same thing as well, right?
Yeah.
So there is going to be a really interesting sort of next 3 to 5 years where things like MDMA, which the FDA has already sort of heralded as a potential breakthrough drug for therapy of PTSD and deep sort of like mental trauma that people have, all the way through to like LSD, where the research has been kicked up by associations like MAPS.
Yeah.
And whatever, suddenly it's going to become vibrant and interesting. And unfortunately, the stiffs, the man, as it were, sort of shut it all down because who wanted freedom of thought back in the 1960s, right? It's potentially dangerous to the modern society.
Yeah, I mean, all the tests they did before the drug war, I mean, they were really close to using LSD and these things in therapeutic ways until they put the clamp down back in the 60s. Yeah. So hopefully we can get back to at least to that part. I mean, Darren and I have had these discussions where I feel like psilocybin is pretty close to becoming legal at some point. Like just like they have these little pot shops now. That'll be soon enough where you can have.
I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime.
You don't think so? Eh?
I mean, but if you would have told me weed was going to be legal in our lifetime, I probably wouldn't have believed you about that 10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember traveling to Amsterdam. Me and my friends used to go over there, like go and have some fun. It's cleaned up a lot now. It's very different today. But 20 years ago, Amsterdam, you could walk into a store and buy mushrooms. I mean, hell, I grew up in the southwest of England in farming country. Magic mushrooms grew on my school field, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like everywhere. So it's it's interesting times when people try and stop something that's potentially very powerful from being readily available and being used. It's all about guidance and it's all about teachings, right? It's why, when you have ayahuasca ceremonies, you have shaman, right? It's why when you use MDMA in a therapeutic setting, you have people that are counselors that are trained to actually work with that substance to get the most benefit out of the session and go into the areas that are really difficult from a trauma perspective and go through some of the tough, deep areas that are going to result in some really good healing, right?
Yeah. I feel like the natural stuff like the psilocybin is more, I don't know, to me it resonates a little bit more because, this technological advancement in a lot of different ways, it's, it proves years later to be damaging in a way, like the food industry. I mean, yeah, we started creating all this, food that's just end up being full of chemicals. And I mean, so many of these big businesses push all this technological thing into our throat and get us to consume it. And then we find out later on that, whether it's like fluoride in the water or chemicals in the food or glyphosate and all these problems that are coming up later. So, is the same thing, is there the same risk with, nootropics and all these supplements and smart drugs? Like, where are the smart drugs going to go? I mean, we must be getting pretty close now to, I've heard about, what's that one smart drug we talk about there?
Viagra?
No,
What's funny is today I was actually, I was in the shaft at work with doing some layout for the guys that abate the asbestos.
Yeah.
And we said something, I was like, I wonder what my kids' are going to be abating.
Yeah, later on, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I've been playing around with nootropics and smart drugs for a few years now, and if you look in my supplements, it's like crazy. Someone was saying to me, it's like, oh, do you from a smart drug regime, what do you do? It's I don't really do much. And then I open my cupboard and there's there's like 50 separate things in here. Yeah. Everything, obviously there's the Advil, right? But then you've got things like milk thistle and green tea extract. You've got 5-HTP. You've got vitamin D. You've got magnesium. You've got maca. You've got like yerba mate that you drink because it's crazy strong. Siberian ginseng. And then you've got like, more off the shelf nootropics like, alpha brain, L-theanine and whatever that allow you to have more mental sort of focus and sort of attention to detail, or stamina really in certain ways. And it's becoming a huge industry if you actually look at that. I mean, I was pulling some numbers on this earlier. Like if you just look at nutritional supplements alone, it's like a $60 billion industry, right? Yeah. And the global nootropics market is about 1.34 billion at the moment, and that's going to go to 6+ billion by 2024. People, we've been told in the world, it's like wake up, have a cup of coffee, smoke a cigarette. Do you know what? Like your kids, they're going to wake up and they're going to take two or three tablets that's going to be to their profile of how they want to feel for the day. They're not going to drink coffee. They're not going to drink cigarettes, which is a great thing, and they're just going to think and operate in different ways. And the nootropics market is going to be something that's really hot. Again, you can burn out if you do too much of this stuff, right? But I'm going to be going down in January to speak to a lot of people that have founded a lot of these companies as part of a project I'm doing. And, the questions I have is like, if you do these fasting regimes or these exercise regimes, meditation obviously is really powerful, but like you then suddenly have these regimes around nootropics that you sort of push out there. What does this actually do? Are we just going to be like 40 years old and completely burnt out and tired and just completely over that? Are we going to be superhumans that are suddenly, a dozen IQ points higher than we were last week just because of a regime of tablets that we're taking? So these are some of the questions I'm going to look at, right? Or is Deborah stuck in her one bedroom apartment in San Francisco completely with her mind blown because microdosing and nootropics, whilst it earned her high accolades, say being a coder in Silicon Valley, after 5 years she's kind of in a mildly sort of detached and vegetative state because
with a bunch of cats.
Maybe a bunch of cats, could be a bunch of anything in San Francisco, right?
See, I go back and forth between that and my kids will be hunting fucking deer in the
back to the
ruins
wild
of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, are we suddenly going to get back? Are we, there's a whole movement around rewilding, taking places that have been sort of made urban and then taking them back into, the forests, maybe Calgary in the future.
Exactly.
It's going to be a beauteous wonderland of renewable energy and green spaces and all sorts of lovely things.
Well, there's the two parts to the biohacking. There's the whole technological aspect where I think that the science, in a lot of ways, I feel like the science is way ahead of the medical community. Like, I feel like the medical community is so big and slow that there's all these people. It's almost like like a biohacking maker lab scene where they're doing all their own science and their own experiments and they're testing all this stuff out and there's really good results. Yet it's going to take decades before it gets into the mainstream medical community. And then there's the other side of the biohacking where there's simple little tools like you mentioned where fasting, I mean, there's huge benefits to fasting and even just little things like dry skin brushing or whatever else you can do that are just almost going back to like away from the technology and back to a more natural state.
Right. Yeah. It is really, really interesting. I like to think that there's a huge democracy that's going to come to certainly the big pharma medical community as well, right?
Yeah. I think that really needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said earlier in this conversation, we've got these smartphones in our pockets that replace the general practitioner doctors that we go and see. Done. It's over. The medical community is starting to see that. You've got people that are working in maker spaces looking at new ways of synthesizing insulin. So insulin is something like a $45 billion industry worldwide, right?
Wow.
Every year. Yeah. And insulin's really, really expensive. And there are big pharma companies that produce the insulin. And there's these two guys in a maker lab down in the States that are starting to produce open source insulin.
Wow.
Right? So what does that do? It just kills the bottom of the market, right? And everything becomes cheaper and more available. The patents and the IP and big pharma is probably going to be one of the most disrupted areas in the next few years. Wait until the big companies like, Google and Facebook and Amazon and whatever start turning their billions of dollars towards, pharmaceutical research, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you mentioned those big companies as well. Now these are the big companies and the biggest companies in the world. Before it was oil and banking and all, and now it's big data, and all these companies like Amazon and Google and Facebook. So, but you also mentioned education as becoming the big one. I mean, I feel like that's really changing as well. Like so much is changing right now, but education, especially, people are coming out of the university and they're creating stuff. Professors are creating their YouTubes online and they're doing all kinds of stuff. And there's all these big, you can learn, like even just with podcasts. I mean, if I anything I want to know about, I can just listen to somebody talk about it for free right now.
That's right. And I left
you should donate.
I left school with no real qualifications. And why was that? It's not because I was stupid. I was completely distracted and I had no faith in the teachers or the curriculum. I thought that, being taught English and math in the way I was being taught those subjects wasn't going to actually add value to the life that I was going to create. At this point, I was like 15 years old. I was a skateboarder, already plugged into the internet and gaming and doing all sorts of stuff, right? I was really like pushing some boundaries. And starting to realize that, that's not the way that the world works. And it took me a few years to sort of find the right sort of university to go to and whatever. But yeah, I mean, the ways that people are going to start thinking, education's going to have to change. They say that 65% of all jobs that kids are going to do today, kids that are at school today, but the 65% of the jobs that they'll do in the future don't exist. Right? Kids that do more vocational training and more sort of open-minded ways of learning are going to actually start their integration into the modern world of work, even starting their own companies earlier than anyone else, other kids, right? And they're actually going to get a lot of benefit from these new ways of thinking. Elon Musk has actually created a school down in Silicon Valley called Ad Astra for his kids and other people's kids that doesn't have grades. Everyone learns together, multiple different subjects, right? Now, I was chatting to a great friend of mine, and his kid, he took him out of the normal school system and put him into this super progressive, technologically sort of focused school out in Surrey. And he's saying that his kid is actually enjoying education rather than coming home and doing the homework that's just, you know what, write this, work that out, and write that there. Computers are going to do that in the future. We need people to be creative, and we need people to, understand like roles of ethics and philosophy, and how to connect with other humans in deeper ways. How to build environments in virtual reality, how to think about artificial intelligence, and how to think about the new ways of the world, rather than just like, hey, here's long division, like go figure.
Yeah, and then flip burgers. Yeah,
you don't. You can't sell.
There's not going to be any of those. Yeah, there won't be any of those jobs. Like all the algorithmic jobs that are simple tasks. The first jobs that are going to go are algorithmic jobs that are like data driven, right? Like administration tasks or cashiers at the bank or cashiers in retail. The people flipping burgers, they're just going to be replaced by robots. So those sort of the kids that messed around in school, running around the playground, oh yeah, they're the popular kids, and then you see them 10 years later, and they're on a construction site just digging holes and not doing anything of skill. They're not going to have that choice. Everyone's going to have to level up, and it's going to be a challenge because not everyone's at the same level of mental aptitude or have got that privileged background to be able to focus on studying whatever. So we're going to have to work out in society how we can provide equal opportunities for everyone, right?
And it's just going to end up, look what's happening with our political system right now, too. Not to get too deep into politics, but is this global connection and the smartphones and all this stuff you're talking about going to help us finally in the political environment? And is democracy going to get, we're going to have a chance democratizing the politics, which should be happening already? Really, it's just...
Or they'll be completely hijacked.
Yeah, when will we be seeing a different change in that, you think?
Do you know what true democracy looks like? It looks like Trump getting elected and Brexit happening. That's what true democracy looks like, right? And I say that, and it's quite a controversial thing around that I say that is when you give enough people in the world that don't have an understanding of politics, geopolitics, policy, ethics, how a society should work in a good libertarian way or in a good conservative way or whatever, people just don't care, and they just get influenced by the wrong people, and they undergo like the process of democracy motivated like never before, and they make really stupid decisions. The UK coming out of Europe is one of the dumbest things I've heard of in my entire lifetime. Sure, Trump being elected was such a wrong decision, but now America's like really paying for it big time. And now they've got a maniac in charge, right? There's an amazing video that Robert Reich, who used to be an advisor to Reagan and Clinton administrations on economics, he did last week. And it was the 1 year anniversary of Trump being elected. And he goes, this video is celebrating 1 year without a president of the US of A.
Yeah, but you got to think that there's, things aren't good for these people to begin with. There's a lot of corruption going on. That's what I'm talking about. Like getting away. When does the system going to break so that it can be rebuilt for the people? It's there's a lot of global corruption that you can't ignore as well.
Yeah, do we follow the model that Cuba followed when Castro took over?
How about Iceland?
Right, let's talk about Iceland, right? Okay, so Iceland's kind of had a lot of scandal in the last few years, but in 2008, when all the bankers got sent to jail and everything was going wrong, the city of Reykjavik realized that they needed a change. So they voted in a guy called John Gunnar, and John Gunnar is a very famous stand-up comedian in Iceland, because the city needed humor and a different perspective on running their city at that point in time. Actually worked out pretty good. And then it's like, let's progress further. And Iceland's good to look at. Let's crowdsource the constitution. You guys heard of this, yeah?
Okay.
So let's crowdsource the constitution. And it was in every newspaper. I used to talk about it in talks. It's like, look at this, is democracy, open source politics, amazing. 3 years later, it completely failed. Because the people that were trying to contribute to an open source contribution just suggested things that were completely illegal, wouldn't work, dynamically were actually really fundamentally stupid. And they had to go back to the original process of having the smart people that were empathetic, that could connect with communities and still have the trickle-up effect of getting opinion and synthesizing that into something that works. They still need that process, right? So, do we burn it all down and remove all the political systems or whatever? Well, countries like Cuba did that, right? And now Cuba, you've got people on an average of $20 a month, sort of income in a communist society, supposedly living happy lives with a crumbling infrastructure and sort of always living on the edge of absolute collapse as a country again, right? It's really tough. And I love Cuba, and I love going to companies like Laos, which is also, sort of a communist country or whatever. I think some of these can work. But, it's a tough road if you truly go down the, break the model and let's rebuild the world, right?
Yeah, I tend to agree. Yeah. I don't think you can, I can't go full anarchy. I think you need limited government at some level. A lot less of it.
Probably more control at the local level would be good. I feel like it's the national level that fucks everything up.
That's right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And localization and small communities can have this alternative way of living, right? So there's a place in Copenhagen called Christiania, which is an anarchist sort of off the grid. It's an anarchist community that sort of overtook some barracks in the late 60s.
What's it called? Christiania?
Christiania.
Okay.
And I went there. Wow, I went there nearly 20 years, and it was wilder than Amsterdam. It's called Freetown Christiania, and they've got a set of rules of how they operate, right? But what they had was, as soon as they built an anarchist community, everyone moved in, including biker gangs and organized crime and drugs and whatever, and suddenly undermined that free society, because some people see freedom as just completely going off, the edge of the cliff, right?
Yeah.
And some people see freedom as a huge opportunity to sort of level up the world, right? So what we have to do is we have to usher in freedom in the right kind of way.
Huh. So did that not work out in the end then, that place?
Yeah. They kicked all the drug dealers out. They kicked all the bikers out. They stopped a lot of the parties that they had there, and they just normalized it back down, right?
And now it's still going?
Yeah, it's still going. It's not as crazy as it was when I went there, but it's definitely still going. And they're looking at development, and it's kind of funny. These barracks that they took over were a short hop from the royal residencies, right? And it was a real thorn in the side of Denmark for a long time. But libertarian society and true anarchism can really ride out in a positive way, but you have to come back in and sort of really bring a level of government to your own principles back in to really make it work, You
need something, because right now, currently in the world, there are $2 billion boats named Bodie McBoatface and Ferry McFerryface.
Yeah, again, true democracy, right? Thanks to the Brits that do that, right? But so here's Christiana's common law. So let's look at this. Right, no weapons, no hard drugs, no violence, no bulletproof clothing, right? No bikers, no biker jackets, right? No affiliation to gangs, no private cars, no sale of fireworks. That's a bit weird. No use of dynamite, and no stolen goods, right? So it's like an anarchist commune that's just trying not to have all the really seedy, shady parts of life in it, right?
Huh.
That sounds pretty.
It's awesome.
They're taking all the fun out of it.
Yeah, no.
Do you know what?
What constitutes a hard drug?
Yeah, that's
in Europe, right? This is heroin, right? Heroin and crack and meth. Yeah,
those are probably no good.
Yeah. So before we run out of time here, just what else do you think do you want to say about your work and what you do and where you're going to be speaking and stuff like that?
Yeah. So it's becoming really interesting for me. I'm going to be speaking in Toronto a couple of times over the next couple of weeks, and here and there around sort of BC and in Alberta as well. So a number of different people, like everything from like the Ontario government to the large consultancy PricewaterhouseCoopers. Next year, it's going to be bigger and better. I've just been invited to go to Dubai. I've just been invited to go down to Peru. What's really interesting, the trajectory that I've seen with me, doing grassroots community events and meetups and small conferences, the momentum behind the people just want to understand what's going to happen in the future. They kind of want to understand, what's coming tomorrow, what's coming in 5 years, and what's coming in 20 years.
Exactly.
And there's me and a number of the people that I know out there doing this that really do work very hard to try and understand the landscape and some of the signals that are happening today that's going to usher in the new world. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been talking about Bitcoin and blockchain. I would have been talking about quantum computing. It just wasn't even on the radar in the same way as today, where it's like disrupting monetary systems and it's going to change the world of cryptography. It's just wild. And that exponential change is happening because everything's mashing together. And what I'm saying, I'm just writing my annual report for next year and the predictions, and maybe I'll come back and talk to you about that as well in 2 or 3 months.
Sure.
I'm saying that we're headed towards a world where the idea of moonshots, right, these big ideas, curing cancer and curing global warming and whatever, is kind of bullshit. Because if we look at that scale, there's only a few companies in the planet that have got the billions of dollars to develop solutions for it that can ultimately own the cure for cancer, right? People like Microsoft and Google, well, they want to own the cure, right? They want to have that recognition, and they ultimately want that revenue flow. I personally think, right? What we're headed towards is exactly what we've been talking about in this entire conversation: is radical creativity. The small changes that we can make as individuals, whether it's in maker spaces, R&D labs, whether it's in smaller companies that are just coming up with new solutions. The radical creativity is going to create a momentum when all of the radically ambitious projects that we're going to do come together as one and create a tidal wave of innovation, right?
Yeah.
And then we can solve the big problems that some of the big guys are sort of feeding on. Right now, they're just acquiring all the radically creative companies to feed into the big solutions. I think what we have to do is stay radically creative, independent thinkers, and not take the big money and realize that, somewhere down the line that there's something more than money in the world to really be recognized as something that's going to provide value to the whole of humanity.
I wonder if these quantum computers make Bitcoin obsolete.
Yeah, basically, if you were to build a quantum computer that had enough qubits to break cryptography, the entire Bitcoin economy collapses immediately.
That's what I was thinking. So that's basically, that isn't that on the horizon?
It's quite a way away.
Okay.
It's quite a way away.
So buy Bitcoin, but be ready to sell them.
I wouldn't recommend that anyone buys Bitcoin right now, because everyone's buying Bitcoin because they think it's going to keep making a lot of money, and it's the wrong way to get into any kind of market, right? Yeah. But hey, I'm wrong. I'm wrong in a lot of aspects, right? I've got a lot of friends that are Bitcoin millionaires because they were Bitcoin farming 6 years ago, and we were like, what the hell are you doing? None of this makes sense.
Well, they should get out now.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, I can buy a pizza with 10 Bitcoin. It's like, wow. And now that pizza is like a $70,000 pizza, right?
I remember fucking someone gave us a bunch of Bitcoins a couple months ago, and they were like, you got to convert them right away. And it was like, it's doubled.
I think we lost them too. Are those ones we lost, and then we couldn't get them back?
Man, I don't even want to think about fucking what that little transaction is worth now, because somebody sent us $100 worth of Bitcoin when it was at like $200.
Man,
and
they sent it, but I had given them the wrong address.
Do you know what? I've heard several. So I've got a friend who had a hard drive with his crypto wallet on it. Right, he's lost it. And there was a guy in the UK, and this was heartbreaking. It was 2 years ago. He'd sent his computer to the into e-recycling, and his Bitcoin wallet was on the computer. And he realized after a week that he'd done this, And literally, he spent months trying to find his hard drive in these huge e-waste piles. I don't think he managed to find it. But like, yeah, it's like, you know, it's like burning $1 million.
It's best not to think about that shit.
I like thinking about it because I don't have any Bitcoin and it makes me chuckle.
That's right. I don't have any either. I mean, like the past. It's best not to dwell on the past. You can't do fucking anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to get busy making a time machine.
That's right.
Hey,
well, we should wrap it up. Where can our listeners track you down? Is there any place our listeners can track you down if they want to bug you or follow you? Or...
Yeah. So nicholasbadminton.com. You can just type my name in the internet, and there's tons of videos and articles I've written for like Fast Company. I've got an article coming out in Vice Motherboard around AI and the financial markets in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm going to be on CTV next Wednesday talking about technological immortality as well.
Yeah, you've been all over the place. How did you do that so quick in like 5 or 6 years? You got yourself out there quite a bit, eh?
There's a lot of people that are too scared to really have the opinions that I have.
Yeah,
I'm pretty provocative, but I'm kind of informed by the people around me. And hey, I'm not always right. I put my hand up to say that I'm wrong on occasion. But do you know what? When I'm right about certain things, people sort of sit up and pay attention. And for years, I've advised very large companies at the board level around business strategy. And now I advise very large companies at the board level around foresight and futurology and about how they can future-proof their organizations. It's incredibly valuable for them. I'm having a blast. It's really fun.
Well, then, and you know what? People trust you because you admit when you're wrong and you admit your mistakes, and then people will trust that. I think that's that's valuable. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. And some people never ask me back, so hey, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll ask you back.
Yeah, well,
we'll send you a shirt to wear on TV.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Send it over. I'm in. And a toque.
Okay.
Ooh, how do we not have fucking toques?
Yeah, we should get toques. Yeah. All right, Nicholas, thanks a lot for coming on, and we'll link to all this stuff in the show notes. And you have a good night and enjoy your travels there coming up.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really enjoyed it.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was a chat with Mr. Nicholas Badminton. Didn't ask him about enemas.
Enemas? Oh, yeah, I should have. Yeah, that's kind of a natural, more of a natural way. Low-tech biohack way, right? Just a, gravity.
I was thinking the feces transplant is low-tech, but you need some tech there.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't just be cramming it up there.
No.
Well,
yeah, that was good. That was,
went by fast.
I don't think I could be as optimistic as him about the future. I don't know. I flip-flop back and forth a bit,
That's just to think about your own future sometimes.
Yeah, I think all this big data is going into that big thing down in the south there and the States.
We're on the execution list when the fucking state takes...
When they want to do their quantum analysis.
So one day that
right
fucking door is just going to bust open and...
two to the head.
Hopefully we're live streaming. Blaze of glory, bitches. Yeah, big thanks to Nicholas for coming on the show and sharing all his optimism with us. It was a great, fun chat.
Forgot to get into AI a little bit and transhumanism. We kind of touched on it, but
we didn't have a lot of time. Well, we'll do it again.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys you could do a little bonus,
thing
or intro thing every 3, 4,
with
6 months
with his new work and stuff like that. Yeah, it must take a lot to keep up on all that. I can't even imagine.
Speaking of new work, check out grimerica.ca/support, guys, for all the different ways you can support our new work. If you are getting a little value from the podcast, head over to grimerica.ca/support and sign up for a monthly if you can. That would be great. If you can't afford to do a monthly, you can do a one-time donation as well. I think it gives you the option to turn any one time into a monthly. So head on over there, guys, if you can, when you can, support the show. I know a guy actually today canceled his subscription. And I was like, oh, man. And then like 5 minutes later, he started a new subscription for an extra $2 a month.
Sweet.
So
thanks, buddy.
We got a raise.
That's good. Yeah, we got a raise, yeah.
Congratulations. All right, guys. So if you can, check that out. Of course, there's a bunch of different ways you can support the show that don't cost you anything.
Reviewing it.
Review the show, share the show, tell your friends about this motherfucker, sign people up for the newsletter, buy some swag for some people for Christmas. There you go. You can buy people a Grimerica shirt. You're sharing the show. You're supporting the show financially. And you're sharing the show when they wear that shirt out. And you're crossing someone off your Christmas list.
And honestly, we couldn't do it without the support. Like we didn't plan on needing support to do this show, but that's what it's turned into. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. Then all these links are in the show notes.
Everything that you could ever need to know. All right, guys, I think that's about it. Yeah, check it all out. Do all that stuff in the show notes because it really helps. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Season's greetings from the Grimerica Show podcast. Gather around the fireplace. Help yourself to some hot cocoa with a little marshmallows in it. Maybe have a candy cane or two, and maybe some cookies. It's so warm and jolly. Cry Merry Christmas. Podcasting from the igloo. Darren plays jingle bells on the didgeridoo. And over there, that's Graham crying tears of joy as he listens in on the little drummer boy. Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. I see you've acquainted yourself with D-Ron. Yeah, it's true, he pops Christmas trees up medicinal. Wait a second, is that? Yeah, I think that's Sasquatch beneath the mistletoe.
Get over here, Graham. Thank you for saving me and give me a kiss.
And it looks like Napoleon Doom is decorating the room with tinsels, ribbon, popcorn on strings, and poinsettias. They are in bloom. And you might ask, who's that in the green and red Lucha Libre mask? Why, of course, that's RPJ. Feliz Navidad. It's so warm and jolly. Cry Merry Christmas. Podcasting from the igloo. Darren plays jingle bells on the didgeridoo. And over there, that's Graham crying tears of joy as he listens in on the little drummer boy. You'll get a warm and fuzzy feeling if you donate to the Grimerica Show. So get in the spirit, reach down in your pocket and make it rain. Let it snow, make it snow, let it snow, let it snow, make it snow. Donate to the show. Donate to the show. Donate to the show. It's so warm and jolly. Cry Merry Christmas. Podcasting from the igloo. Darren plays jingle bells on the didgeridoo. And over there, that's Graham crying tears of joy as he listens in on the little drummer boy.
Spam.